Another character who kind of goes along with this whole Jewish center thing is Joe Rogan. And, you know, again, Joe Rogan, not Jewish himself, at least as far as I know. I think he is married to one, or was married to one. But he kind of runs with this whole crowd, and he has these guys on his show, Dave Rubin and Jordan Peterson and all the rest of them, right, are regular guests on Joe Rogan's show. And there was a video of him recently where he's bashing incels, and he's bashing Jordan Peterson's idea of enforced monogamy to help deal with this incel situation, and saying it's not going to work, and that these guys just need to become men, and that if you have you know, a bunch of guys that nobody wants to fuck, then you know, some institutional arrangement like enforced monogamy is not going to help. They just have to become men and work on self-improvement. You know, kind of like how Jordan Peterson talks about climbing the dominance hierarchy and cleaning your room and all that kind of stuff. And both of these guys do it to an extent, but I guess Joe Rogan is more hardcore about self-improvement than Jordan Peterson if he's knocking Jordan Peterson's suggestions for, you know, let's say normative reform, bringing back monogamy, saying that's not going to do any good. Joe Rogan must be much more hardcore about individualism and self-improvement than even Jordan Peterson if he's going to knock Jordan Peterson for making those kind of suggestions. But, you know, what's he really saying here? How would it not do any good? You know, and is it even possible for, you know, people to... How do you deal with a Pareto distribution where 80% of the women are going after 20% of the guys, and therefore are not able to secure commitment from them, and therefore are screwing around and not settling down themselves? How do you deal with a situation like that through self-improvement, right? Through self-improvement, you can get yourself into the 20% of the guys by improving relative to other guys, right? But that situation is not fundamentally going to be altered by any amount of self-improvement, even if all guys are doing it. Even if all guys are improving themselves and, you know, going to the gym and getting better looking and getting fitter and working on their careers and getting more money and doing everything else that makes them more attractive and successful and healthy and everything, right? If all the guys are doing that, some guys are still going to be more attractive than others, and 80% of the women are still going to be going after the top 20% of the guys. That's how that works. And so the only thing you can do by self-improvement is to move yourself up or down relative to other guys. You can't fundamentally change that situation. You can't fundamentally change that dynamic. You can't fundamentally change that distribution by improving yourself, or any number of people by improving themselves. Can't do it. Can't be done. Alright? That distribution exists because there's a difference, you know, in what the individually optimal strategy or solution is and the socially optimal strategy or solution, right? We want people to pair off according to assortative mating. Okay? That's, as far as we know, pretty close to the socially optimal strategy, right? But people don't want to do that. They feel like they could get more. They think they could get more, and it's an easy mistake for a woman to make, especially because, you know, a woman can always date a more desirable man than she can marry, and sleep with a more desirable man than she can date, right? So if she can date a more desirable man than she can secure commitment from, you know, that's a tremendously attractive option for her, especially if she can't necessarily tell that she's not going to be able to secure commitment from this guy. Or the guy might not be telling her straight up that, hey, you know, this isn't going to go anywhere. I just want to, like, have fun with you for a little while. And, you know, also for sleeping around. You know, if if she can sleep with a much more desirable guy than she can even date, you know, that might be a desirable option for her, seem like a desirable option, you know, if she thinks she can pin this guy down. And he's not going to tell her any different, right, necessarily, and jeopardize his chances of sleeping with her for that night, you know, even if that's all he wants to do with her. He's not going to say, look, you know, this is a one-night stand. I'm not going to call you tomorrow. He's not going to say anything like that in most cases. So, you know, it's going to be tremendously difficult for this woman to figure this out, to figure out how she stands with these dudes. And so she's going to be chasing these dudes that are out of her league, that are unattainable for her, at least in terms of securing commitment. And she's going to waste a lot of time doing it. And she's going to waste her youth, and she's going to waste her beauty, and she's going to waste her time chasing these dudes she can't secure commitment from. All right? And then she's going to end up having to settle for a lot less when she's old and she's about to hit the wall. That's the situation here. That's the problem. And she's going to be miserable. The dude she settles for is going to be miserable. You know, the dudes she ends up sleeping with along the way, maybe not so miserable, but it's really not important, because, you know, protecting their ability to do that and their right to do that is not really a high priority. That's not a socially beneficial, you know, thing to protect. And they're not even getting an evolutionary payoff from it. You know, they're not reproducing even their genes. You know, if they were even reproducing their genes, it would be a payoff at least to them. But they're not doing that in most cases. So they're really just, all they're doing is, you know, getting their rocks off, and it's all for naught, pretty much. It's, you know, it would be a parasitic strategy, even if they were passing on their genes and, like, sticking those women with those children to raise in the society and everything else. That would be a parasitic strategy, but they're not even doing that. All right, they're not being parasitic about it. They're just simply destroying these women's mate value just for kicks. That's it. Not for anything else. Not for any compelling benefit even to them. So it's not something that's a high priority to tolerate. It's not something that's a high priority to enable. You know, it's not clear how self-improvement is going to do anything but put you into the ranks of these guys who could do that if you wanted to. Now, if you're in the ranks of those guys, you can also use that status to find a good wife and settle down, etc. All right? But how many guys are actually going to do that when the option is that, or, you know, just play the field as much as you want? If you have both of those luxuries, if you have both of those options, which one are you going to take? And I'm not like getting on a moral high horse here, tooting my own horn. I'm not, you know, saying, you know, one of those options appeals a lot more to me than the other, just because of who I am. But I can understand why a lot of guys choose the other way. I can understand. And I don't think it's going to change. So, you know, this self-improvement thing, it's really, it's not a bad idea. You should work on yourself. You should improve yourself. I'm not saying that's a bad idea in and of itself, but it's not a solution to systematic issues with incentives and norms and the breakdown in culture and values and institutions. Self-improvement does not fix that, okay? It's not a systematic solution to what ails us, because what ails us, you know, we have systematic problems arising from the breakdown of traditional norms and institutions. And the only way to fix that is to restore the traditional norms and institutions that used to hold those problems at bay. And so all this stuff about self-improvement is largely a distraction. I'm not saying it's a total waste of time, because it isn't. You know, it's worthwhile in its own right, but it's not the solution to those problems. And to push it as the solution to those problems is a distraction. It's obfuscation. It's muddying the waters. It's misunderstanding the issues. It's misdirecting people. It's profoundly irresponsible and reckless and short-sighted and counterproductive. And I'm not at all surprised that any of these people, whether it's Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson, because he talks about it too, even if he does talk a little bit about bringing back monogamy, which gets Joe Rogan's goat apparently, he does talk about self-improvement, and he emphasizes that more than, I would say, systematic solutions or normative solutions or institutional solutions to harmonizing the individual incentives that people, because people's individual incentives are not automatically in harmony with one another, right? Sometimes you need norms, sometimes you need institutions to harmonize those individual interests and to get people working on strategies as a group rather than just as individuals at each other's throats, trying to get the most for themselves and the best for themselves. You know, damn everyone else, screw everyone else, screw the consequences to society or to others. You know, sometimes you need to get people to sacrifice their individual interests a little bit in order to achieve a cooperative solution that's more optimal for more people. And it's not really, sacrifice is the wrong word, because sacrifice implies that you're getting nothing. You're not getting nothing, you're getting the benefits. But the point is, unless the cost is enforced, unless the participation is mandatory, nobody gets the benefits, right? Because, you know, in many cases, defection is preferable. It's preferable to seek the individual optimum without, you know, regard for the group or the social situation. So, yeah, you know, all this stuff about self-improvement, it's not necessarily worthless in its own right, but it is worthless as a solution to these kind of systemic issues, where the issue is a breakdown in norms and institutions that harmonize, you know, conflicting interests or whatever, and establish a cooperative solution, establish a society based on a, you know, group evolutionary strategy or whatever. Okay? So when that breaks down, self-improvement doesn't reestablish it. What reestablishes it is the same kind of cooperative norms and institutions that established it in the first place. And that's what needs to be restored. That's what needs to be repaired. Not the individuals, all right, but the norms and institutions, the overarching norms and institutions that enable a bunch of individuals to work together in a productive and cooperative and pro-social way, whether that be with reproduction and marriage and family or anything else.